Hey everybody, welcome back to GWN. I am Knock, your host. If this is your first time stopping by, hey, thanks for popping in. Hit subscribe so you can find out when we have new videos. If you're a returning visitor, thanks a lot for coming back. I appreciate the views. Today we're going to talk about Minion Drops again, and I want to answer some of the questions that I've been getting both in comments as well as elsewhere in the forums and so forth. People are asking about deployment strategies and things like that. I'm going to start off with two videos, two replays of low-level dropships and how I use them. You guys know that I come from mass beta minion at Builder Hall 4. Beta minions, really going to air attacks in general. It's kind of my thing. And at the first three Builder Halls, I stick with the ground attacks like everybody else. But then at Builder Hall 4, I max out my beta minions, and mass beta minion becomes my primary attack for the rest of Builder Hall 4, all of 5, all of 6 to the very end when I grab my Night Witches and start doing Mitch. And then at Builder Hall 7, I typically jump to Minion Drops. And you can do this with Minion Drops pretty early on. It's just a matter of how many camps you take. And you'll see in these first two replays, this one's almost done, but you've seen it. I'm using level 4 Minion Drops. And the replays I've got for you today are level 4, 8, 9, 12, and 14. So it's a fairly good sampling. The purpose of the dropship in Minion Drops begins as a tanking unit. It's got more tanking capabilities than even a giant does, a boxer giant does for ground. So the moment it comes out of the box at level 1, you can use it for exactly that purpose. And in these particular videos, you'll see that I only use, for these first two, I only use 2 level 4 dropships because my powerhouse is still my beta minions. And I timed their placement. I timed the dropping to get them in there just in time to tank against the roaster and to a degree against the air bombs. This one I lose a couple of beta minions in the process, but not that much. Not like I'm losing the whole line or anything like that. But the dropships get in there, and the beta minions are able to do what they're there to do, namely to take out the Builder Hall and secure the 2-star, as well as taking out the giant cannon. This works very well in the lower trophy rankings. I want to say Wolf Ninja's around maybe 3,000 or so, 3,200 trophies, give or take. And I've used this a little bit higher up into, say, maybe 3,500 or so. Because usually by then I'm already working on my dropships, and I've got Mitch that I can work with. But it works very well, even at this very early stage, this low level of dropships. Now, for level 8 through level 14, I do change my strategy up. I start using 2 or 3 camps of dropships, and the decision on which one to use is kind of arbitrary. Really, it is. Most bases, it could go either way. The primary deciding factor, I think, is the initial point of deployment and how far into the base the beta minions need to go. If the beta minions need to chew through a whole bunch of buildings, then it's typically better to have more of them to do so. But if the worst of the key defenses are at the very back of the collection of buildings, if they're all the way towards the back of your deployment path, then, well, it makes more sense to go in with more tanking, because otherwise your beta minion is just going to die by the time they get back there, and you're not going to have as much firepower working your way through. Often when I go up with a base that has more of the level 7 defenses, I also go with just 2 camps so that I can take advantage of that extra striking power of third camp of beta minions. So most of these replays, actually, you know what? I think all these replays are from the last day and a half, because I just cleared all my games again yesterday. So none of these replays is more than 2 days old. And that means they all happen after season reset. So there are a number of opponents that I've been going up against over the last 2 days that, yeah, they may be around 4,000, 4,100 trophies, even 3,900 trophies. But the reality is they were maybe 5,000, 5,500 trophies before. Even if the walls don't show it, a lot of these structures are going to be higher level structures. And that's why you'll see me pulling out just 4 beta minion or 4 drop ships rather than 6, one with 2 camps instead of 3. Definitely using that extra firepower from the beta minions to take out, what we're going up against. Uh, the purpose of your initial attack when you're running minion drops should be to secure the 2-star, which means 50% plus the builder hall. Take out the giant cannon, also the roaster, especially if it's at the front of the line, and as many defenses as you can get afterwards. That's what your initial attack is there to do. The drop ships go before the beta minions to tank for them and keep them alive so they can do maximum damage. Later levels, again, 8, 10, 12 of the drop ships will also provide some damage, especially as they fall. They'll even take out walls, but when they go down, they drop a bunch of skeletons and they've got somewhat of an explosive drop, if you will. They'll take out some defenses along the way too. But that's what you're really focusing on in your initial attack. And you'll see that here in each one of these replays, including this one. I often leave the air bombs for the very end, especially if they're out towards the edge like this one is. But the roaster I try to get early on. Now, if the roaster is sitting out towards the edge along with the air bombs, sometimes I'll bum rush and come in from that direction, but more often than not, I don't. I come from the area opposite of the air bombs. And you know what? I'll save the roaster till later if that's the case, if it's out towards the edge. The primary purpose of the battle machine in these attacks, he's cleanup. There are some of these attacks that, I kid you not, dropships and beta minions are gone within 60 seconds, sometimes less, of the attack beginning. And the next 2 minutes of the attack are nothing more than the battle machine beating on walls, beating on high hit point structures, and working his way through things. This is why base design is so very important. If your base has all of your defense in one area and your opponent takes it out, that just leaves really junk buildings and a couple of minor defenses to work against the battle machine. And that works out great for minion drops. I do it a lot. It's in many, many, many of these replays. As long as I can get rid of that giant cannon, and hopefully one, if not both, of the crushers, my battle machine is going to survive and just walk his way around your base for a couple of minutes until he takes it down. Talking about that deployment, the initial deployment strategy. Most of the time you want to drop your drop ships first so that you can ferret out any mega mines or air, regular mines that are set to air along the edge of your deployment. If you remember from our discussions on base design, a good base designer tries to figure out where his opponent is going to deploy before he sets up his defenses. And you can usually set the defenses up in such a way as will direct certain strategies to come in from certain angles. Take, for example, minion drops. Like I said before, I usually come in from the direction opposite of where the air bombs are located. So like in this one, for example, air bombs were on the lower left. I came in from the upper right. And that'll be the case on almost all of these bases where I come in opposite of the air bombs. So if you put the air bombs on one side, I'm not going to deploy over there. You want to put your mines and your mega mines on the other side. Other base designs, not so great. This one, for example, is an elongated base. You guys know my thoughts on elongated bases. They're just not very strong in the big scheme of things. They're very easy to take down. I literally drop all 4 of my balloons. I give them a good solid spread, bring in the beta minions behind them. I use the extra firepower of 3 camps of beta minions to just take out everything on this base. I even drop my battle machine a little bit early to let him work his way in. And by the time he gets into the middle, most of the defenses are gone. I mean, we're at what? 65, 70%, I think. Yeah, 69% here before he even gets in and starts hammering on anything. Most of the the giant cannon's even gone. So that initial deployment, and again, 2 camps versus 3 camps, it's up to you. The base design is going to guide it. That's what's going to determine how you lay it out, how you lay them down. The spread of your drop ships is also going to be a big factor. You don't want to spread them out too far. If you do, you're not going to be able to catch all the mines and the mega mines that have been set to air. And even though they probably won't clump up, which is always a goal, they're also probably going to go awry. They're going to go in directions that you don't want them to go as they spread out and distance themselves from your beta minions. So not a good thing, not the way you want it to work out. But at the same time, you can't get them too tight in your deployment because otherwise they just clump up. That is their nature. Usually, if you go with typically 3 and you spread them out about maybe an inch apart, they usually will work their way across the line that you've set up, and then you can just trickle in the remaining ones one at a time to take the place of anything that's going down. Typically, again, going after the roaster more than anything else. That's what you see in most of these. Every once in a while, I will intentionally clump them up to get extra firepower in one area or a little bit bigger of a burst when they drop, but that's not the way I commonly do it. Usually if they clump up on me, it's accidental and it's not what I wanted. The key to the spread is, again, about an inch, and making sure that you don't allow them to bunch up on any high hit point structures. And that's another base design tip there. When you design a base with rectangles and then put in the middle rectangle, you put in front of that, say, your clock tower and your lab, that will typically bunch up your opponent's troops. And that's why you'll see me dropping beta minions first on those to try to take out those high hit point structures that are up front to clear the way for my dropship so they don't clump up like that. You can do that inside the walls as well, especially if you leave some gaps on either side of those two structures. But most players aren't so good at that when they design their bases. Something else to watch out for in base design, something like this one. It's an anti-rage barbarian base, and you'll notice that they have 4 walls around the builder hall. If you don't get that builder hall with your battle machine or with your beta minions or with your dropship, you're probably not going to get a 3-star. And that's because the battle machine will typically not be able to break through those walls in enough time. He'll walk all around the outside, taking out everything else, but he won't be able to break through those walls to take out the builder hall before the timer runs out. Now, these are some of the things that really can take your potential 3-star down to 2-star or even 1-star very quickly and very easily. It's why I say that initial attack has to be focused on builder hall, giant cannon, and roaster, as and of course 50% 2-star as its primary objective, leaving the battle machine to come in and just kind of clean up towards the end. That one goes down okay. Most of the bases, I gotta say, there's no really big difference between any one of these bases for an air attacker by the way the walls are laid out. If you take a look at each one of them, they all have similar to same cores, where they have the builder hall more or less centralized. It's going to have on top and bottom or left and right the crushers. It's going to have the air bombs, giant cannon, and roaster, and probably multi-mortar, all touching it. Sometimes on 2 sides, sometimes on 4 sides. Occasionally one of them will be 1 space away, but they're all pretty much clustered right in the middle around it. And then opposite of where the air bombs are, you typically have your 3 firecrackers. Usually either adjacent to one of those key defenses, the giant cannon and multi-mortar and air bombs and roaster. But sometimes they might be a space out as well. The point is that they're there to cover the area that the air bombs and the roaster are not, while at the same time offering support to the roaster and sometimes to the air bombs as they're firing slower against the individual air troops that you're sending in. Battle machine comes in again for the cleanup at the very end. I always zip these up to 4x because nobody wants to just sit and watch and watch as he beats on stuff. Same basic thing. You know, it's another diamond-shaped attack. Notice where everything is located. You know, the two crushers are there at the corners on the one side, kind of covering the left and the lower left and lower right angles of the builder hall. You've got your key defenses adjacent or one space away from the builder hall. We're working our way in with the beta minions. We went with 3 camps in this case. Because the roaster and the air bombs are on the opposite side, I decided to leave them until till the end to allow the battle machine to deal with them. And it works out well in this case. So instead of coming in at the roaster or even trying to get to the air bombs, I come up from the bottom and just leave them to the end. And it's not that big of a deal. Battle machine's going to work his way around. Last few beta minions continue to do their thing, helping him out as he gets around, and then he works his way into the middle and takes out the last couple of defenses. You know, that's how it usually works. Matter of fact, in this case, oh yeah, the roaster's even locked on the battle machine, so the battle machine's going to do some of it, but the beta minions are going to knock out the roaster. See, these are all very standard for this this attack strategy. Each one of them. Again, if you follow those basic ideas, you know, you avoid the clumping, you make your initial attack strategy or initial attack run, the taking out the 50%, getting the builder hall, and taking out the giant cannon, and of course the roaster. It's going to do it for you. You know, trickle in your drop ships, and you'll get it done. I think this is the last of the replays that I've got for you. And here we go. Down goes the giant cannon. Down goes the builder hall. And now we're just set up to wait for the battle machine to come in and do the cleanup. So guys, if you have any other questions, any comments, please do put them down below. Catch me on the forums. Forum.supercell.com, I believe, is the URL for the forums. Noctair on there. You've got my email, noctair@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. I've been a little bit busy this last week with the holidays and, of course, clan games. Hope everybody got into your clan games and really enjoyed yourself. I know I did. I got all 6 tiers and managed to get the Book of Heroes and the Book of Building, and I've been using that to work on different things on both the builder base and on the home village. That's been a lot of fun. If you enjoyed the video, please do hit like and hit subscribe. Help me build the channel. Always appreciate the feedback and the assist. On that note, I am out of here. You guys hang in there. Keep on clashing. Bye-bye.